Hello, Southwest Florida homeowners and homebuyers. Welcome to the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, your go-to source for navigating the vibrant real estate landscape of our beautiful region. I'm your host, Kevin Tremmel, a local real estate agent, leader, and investor here in Southwest Florida. On this podcast, we bring you insights from best in the business, top-notch real estate professionals, seasoned agents, and experts in everything from homeowners insurance to mortgages, maintenance, and repairs. Whether you're a first-time homebuyer or a seasoned homeowner, we've got you covered with tips, strategies, and valuable insights to make your journey in Southwest Florida's real estate market a breeze. Get ready to unlock the doors to successful home ownership. This is the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast, where we demystify the process, share insider knowledge, and ensure you're well equipped to make informed decisions. Let's dive in.
Welcome to another episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. Today we have Sandra Rathe with us. Sandra is a luxury real estate agent with Keller Williams in Southeast Florida. Sandra and her team have been top agents in South Florida for the past 15 years, outselling thousands of other agents and selling over $721 million in real estate since 2009. Welcome to the show, Sandra.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to be here.
Thank you for taking the time. And why don't we get started? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you end up where you are at today? Tell us a little bit about the journey.
Sure. I'll backtrack to kind of the beginning of my career just to give you a little history there. I actually started right out of college working for Pricewaterhouse as a CPA. A little bit different than real estate, but I started there, didn't love it, but got great tools that I learned from that experience. Moved on to corporate accounting, did some marketing for corporations as well. And then I had kids and we were moving around a bit for my husband's job. So I actually stayed home, did some charity work for a couple of years until everybody was finally old enough to go to preschool. Yay, preschool. But then I was like, yay, I finally got you here. But now what do I do when I'm sitting at home used to having 3 kids running around and now they're all at school? So I was like, well, what do I do? And I looked at going back into accounting, and accounting is kind of one of those jobs that you're working 10, 12 hours a day, pretty much every day. And if you're in certain kinds of accounting, the closing process, you might be working 15 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So I thought about that for a little while, actually went on a few interviews and said, I don't think I can do it. I want to be the mom who's picking up her kids from school, the one who is dropping them off, going to their soccer games, going to their theater performances, all the things. I wanted to do all the things. So I was really racking my brain like, well, what do I do? Like, all I know is accounting and corporate work, and that's not going to work for what I want to do with my kids. So I had some properties that I had been renting, doing vacation rentals here in Florida. And I was doing pretty well with them. And I said, you know what? I could do this for other people. It's something I know. I've done it for myself. I could do it for other people. So off I went to get my real estate license. Little did I know that really nobody wanted to do that when I got my license. I interviewed with numerous companies and they're all like, yeah, no, we don't do that. Nope, we're not doing that either. Nope. We're not doing that. And I just kept getting told the same thing. The liability was just too high and none of the brokerages wanted to do that. So I said, well, I guess I'll try this real estate thing. Literally, like, what else am I going to do? I'll give it a try.
Right.
I think it worked out all right.
Yeah, awesome. And when was it? Like, what year did you get licensed? And then what year did you kind of like really start, so to speak?
Yeah, I got licensed in September of 2009. And of course, I didn't have any transactions probably that first year. And then in 2010, I started working on farming and it really took off right away.
Okay, awesome. Well, one thing, and then I want to ask you about farming because I know that's something you're very good at, but it's interesting your trajectory because CPA, accounting, numbers, and then real estate, emotions, people couldn't be more different, right? Like you pretty much went from one extreme to the other. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah. What do you like? What do you like better? I guess kind of a loaded question because you've been doing this for 16 years. So I guess I can imagine the answer, but do you miss accounting ever? Like, do you ever miss just, staring at a spreadsheet for a couple hours and like no emotions and just, numbers. And do you ever miss that or?
Well, the great thing is that I have found many ways that spreadsheets can really help us in real estate. So I'm still doing a lot of spreadsheets. And when I interview somebody and they tell me they like spreadsheets, I'm like, yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, nice.
I think that as we focus more on the listing side than the buyer side. We do both, but we're 70% on the listing side. And that's what I would call the more business side. So that's the side where you're calculating the numbers, you're crunching the numbers, looking at comparables, working with the appraisals, things like that. So I think that if actually it's a nice blend, I think that accounting background actually brings a lot to the table as I'm leading my agents and teaching them how to analyze the numbers and really understand the financial consequences.
Yeah, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more. I majored in chemistry and finance, so somewhat, similar. And what I probably enjoy most, or one of the things I enjoy most, is actually doing like CMAs. Like, oddly enough, just being like a really good CMA. I don't know. It's just fun to me, which other agents right now are probably like, oh my God, what is he talking about? But
Right.
yeah, so I definitely understand that. And tell us a little bit more about like your team. So you said 70% about, is the listing side, and then the other 30, I'm assuming, is buyers. But how many people do you have on your team right now? How is it kind of set up? Are you still actively producing, or are you just kind of more like a sales manager owner role, or like what's the business model right now?
Yeah, great question. I have 12 producing agents on the team, and my goal is always to have high producers, not 100 producers. So I'd rather have fewer agents that are doing more than a lot of agents doing less. My agents are allowed to do buyers, sellers, whatever they want to do. And then I jump in to give them guidance as to what I think would be best for them based on their personality. And we work towards those goals together. I am not producing anymore. I haven't actually produced for about 4 or 5 years. And it's interesting because a lot of people, when they're at that point where they want to get out of production, they're worried about not making as much money because now you're splitting it with your team. And to be honest with you, the efficiencies that come into play when you stop producing and just train other people to do it as well as you did it, maybe even better than you did it. The efficiencies that come from that, we actually grew leaps and bounds when I got out of production because I can train 12 agents to do what I did, maybe even better because that's all they're doing. They're not worrying about the marketing. They're not worrying about building the business. That's my job. So I can focus more on training them and making their skills even stronger because I'm not producing.
Yeah, very interesting. So it definitely sounds like from an agent count or just agents quality over quantity, definitely, which I think is the way to go. And yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, that's the old, like, business owner thing, right? You can, if you take a step back and you can duplicate yourself essentially 12 times, then you're making more than even if you work 15 hours a day for 7 days a week, right? Like if you duplicate yourself. So sounds interesting. And then, so let's back up a little bit to like when you started. You mentioned farming. You said, as is kind of customary in our industry, first year, maybe can count the transactions on one hand kind of thing. And then second year, it kind of like really took off. So I guess like what was your marketing effort and your lead gen back then? What worked for you? And like, where did you learn how to generate leads and things like that?
Sure. So when I first started, and we've been doing the same thing, mostly the same thing ever since, but so I started doing a newsletter in 2010 that goes out every month. And when I first started, I didn't have any money because I wasn't making any money. You know how that goes, right? So when I first started, I was going to the office in the middle of the night to print the newsletters because you can't print, how these offices are. The agents are going to kill you if you're hogging up the printer. So we'd go in the middle of the night and print newsletters. And then I would take them everywhere I went, folding them so that I could hand deliver them to the neighborhood that I was farming. So, people think, oh, you've got family, you've got this, you've got that. No, I literally started from ground zero because we moved here from out of state and we didn't have any family or friends here. And so I had to build the business. I had to find a way to get leads because we didn't have Sphere. So I started this newsletter that has gone out every single months since 2010, except for one, because Hurricane Irma shut the presses down.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that always has to happen. Like the world could be on fire, but that's going to happen. That newsletter is going to go out. And that newsletter creates a relationship with everybody in the neighborhood. It's not just an advertisement of we sell real estate. It's a journal of my journey. It's a conversation with my readers. It's asking them, what do you want? What do you need? And them replying, and they'll actually send me emails and phone calls. And, it's really creating a relationship where they feel like they know me, they know my team, even though they've never met me.
Yeah. Awesome. And question, so 2009 sounds like it was kind of old school newsletter, door knocking, like that kind of stuff. And the reason why I asked, because a couple weeks ago I had a guest on the show and he actually specializes in LinkedIn newsletters, so more like digital. How has your newsletter evolved? Is it still, you say it has to go out every month? Do you still, farm neighborhoods, door knock, say, hey, this is my newsletter kind of thing? Or has it maybe become more digital or automated? Like shed some light on that.
Yeah, sure. So in some ways, it's exactly the same. When I first started, it was, like I said, I printed it myself. It was not great quality. It was black and white, and it was on just regular paper. Mm-hmm. So, and at that time, I was hand delivering it, not door knocking, but hand delivering it. So I would rollerblade actually around the neighborhood. Cool. I was in a lot better shape back then. I was rollerblading and sweating a lot, and my kids would sometimes help. They were little, but they would help. And it was, a little challenge of who can deliver the most newsletters, whatever. Yeah. So it, kind of started there. Now, today, the content is very similar to the content that it was back then. But of course, now the neighborhood came to me and said, sorry, you can't deliver this anymore. You can't put it on the front doors. And I was like, thank you for putting me out of doing that. Right. Because I would never have stopped. I would have kept doing that. But it was nice to be able to now send it to the printer, and the printer takes care of it.
Yeah.
So we went from the black and white hand delivered to color, and now the printer's getting it to the post office and getting it sent out, which creates a scalable business, right?
Yeah.
It's no longer dependent on me rollerblading, despite my lack of exercise now because of that. But, we were able to scale it and do more than one neighborhood now. When we started, it was just the one. So the newsletter is still very similar to when we first started. The articles will ebb and flow because we want to change it up a little bit, but we'll circle back to things we did back in 2010. Real estate hasn't changed that much.
Right. Yeah. And are you tailoring the information? Like, is every newsletter the same for every neighborhood, or do you tailor the information to like that specific neighborhood?
Yeah, it'll be tailored to the neighborhood. So we'll have sales, we'll report the sales for that neighborhood. We'll report what we've sold, what we have active, and what we have pending for that neighborhood. And then maybe we do an article about the local park in the neighborhood. Well, then every subdivision that we farm is going to have their park, not the same park. Gotcha. So yeah, it's really trying to make it more connecting to the people that are receiving it.
Yeah. So again, quality over quantity, right? Just like very specific to that neighborhood. So the reader, I guess, engages and identifies with it.
Absolutely.
From like a business owner perspective, so you have 12, sounds like very successful agents on your team. Let's talk like recruiting a little bit, because I know a lot of agents. One of my mentors when I first got licensed in 2017, he always kind of goes, back and forth between being like a very successful single agent and, kind of trying to scale up to maybe 2 to 3 agents. And his biggest hurdle is always recruiting and just finding the right people, right? Because he says, what you're kind of saying, like you can duplicate yourself and economies of scale, but it can also backfire, right? If you don't have the right people in the right place and you spend hours every day to train somebody and it's just not working out and it's taken away from your production and so on and so forth. So recruiting, like where do you find agents? Are most of them newer agents and you kind of like to mold them to your processes, or are most of them maybe experienced agents, or are they from like completely different industries? Where do you recruit, and who do you like to recruit?
Yeah. So I would say the majority of the agents that I work with are going to be newer agents. And I do that specifically because you're not breaking any bad habits that way. You're just creating the good ones. So I'm looking more for the skills, not the skills of real estate, but the skills of a person as a worker. So I'm looking at, do you have grit? Are you coachable? Are you hungry? Ego is very important to be on a team. You have to not want it to be all about me. So that's a challenge too, because you have a great producer, but they may not be a good fit for a team because they want it to be all about them. So that kind of narrows us down to more newer agents than experienced agents. But I won't say no to an experienced agent if it makes sense for the team. I've been very fortunate that my top agent, he's been with me for 11 years now. Another agent's been with me since the first year I started. So I've been very fortunate that way. And as we've grown, a lot of it has been organic. People seeing the team, seeing what we're doing. It's exciting to see our signs everywhere and our bus bench and, whatever they're showing properties and half of them are ours. And so they naturally want to find out if they could join the team. So a lot of it happens that way. The agents on my team, they often bring agents to us too. And I'm always giving them like a little extra look if they are being recommended by one of my team members, because I already know my team, I like and trust them. So I will trust that they're bringing me good people. So a lot that way. And then we have an internship program. And so some of the interns have ended up getting their license and joining the team over the years.
Gotcha. So they might start off at more as like an admin role as an intern, and then
right,
kind of graduate or grow into like a licensee and things like that. Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah. And it's great because it's like a 4-month interview. Right? You've got them for 4 months, usually like a semester of school, 4 months. And by the end of the 4 months, like, a lot about them, they know a lot about you. Yeah. So it's a good interview process.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. And then, so it sounds like farming, is that like a very big part of your business and where most of your business comes from? And am I understanding that correctly, or?
Yeah, I would say that's the core of our business. Okay. And while we have a lot of past clients and referrals, but most of them are going to start from one of our farm areas, and then they end up kind of, it moves outward as we continue to work with people, because we'll move them out of the farm into somewhere else, then we'll end up working with them again. So it kind of just keeps naturally spreading, which is great.
Yeah, it's like a spider web, right? It's like exponential. Like the longer you're in real estate, the more past clients you have and the more sphere you have, and it just kind of exponentially goes up. But
absolutely. But you have to stay in touch with them. And I think that's one thing that we're very good at, making sure that we stay in touch, even when things are super busy. Like we're doing an event in 2 weeks. And the purpose of the event is to have a reason to touch our past clients. That without the event, it gets a little awkward. You're calling people who aren't moving and they're not doing anything. It's like, okay, what do I say today? So having an event where they can bring their children or bring their mom or whoever really works out well, because it gives you a reason to call them. It gives you a reason to have a conversation. They may not come to the event, but you got them on the phone and you're staying in touch with them.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about your farming strategy. I know you do some serious volume. So how do you, I guess, farm your way to a certain amount of gross commission income a year? I know you mentioned the newsletter and, staying in touch, but I guess even like, how do you pick out your farm, right? I know that's an important topic too, because if there's 2 sales a year in there, I mean, you can kind of farm all you want, right? But so I guess, how do you identify good farms, and then how do you penetrate like a new farm? Because, there's a difference between you've been doing business there for 15 years or no one knows your name, right? And then just kind of, if you could shed some light on that whole process from A to Z without giving too much away of the secret sauce, of course.
Oh, no, I'm an open book. I don't mind. An open book. So to begin with, it's finding neighborhoods, one that you like. So one thing we've learned over the years, because we farmed a few neighborhoods that we ended up leaving the neighborhood because we just didn't enjoy it. My top agent, we had been getting a whole bunch of leads in this one neighborhood. And so we said, let's farm. And we were doing a great job in there, but he hated it. Every day he'd come to the office and he'd like slam his bag on the table and be like, I hate this neighborhood. The age of the homes, and it wasn't where he wanted to be.
Yeah.
So we ended up canceling that neighborhood. So that's super important. And you want to make sure that you're in a neighborhood that makes sense for you. So like if you're 20 and you have no, like maybe you don't have any older people that you're friends with, you're probably not going to be that successful in a 55 and over community or a neighborhood that's older. Just like if you're older, you may not be so good in a first time home buyer neighborhood. So really make sure that it makes sense and that you can relate to the people in some way. That doesn't mean they have to be identical to you, but you have to have some kind of experience that you can connect with them. So that would be my first step. And then I'm going to look at the turnover rate. How many homes are selling in the year? And for me, I want a turnover rate as close to 5% as I can get. And then I also want to make sure that the volume of sales is high enough that if I only get 10%, I'm still able to make the numbers work financially. So at a 10% market share, I should be fine making, $500,000 a year in that neighborhood. So those are the most important things that I'm going to look at to make sure that I've got enough volume, that I've got a high turnover rate, and that I can relate to them. Then the last thing I want to look at is is there another agent or a couple of agents that really own the neighborhood already? And you'll be surprised how the perception of an agent is totally different than the reality. When I first started, I was like, oh, I can't do this neighborhood because this person is crushing it in here. They own it in here. Well, when I actually looked at the numbers, they really sold very little. And so I went ahead and farmed it, and she eventually got totally phased out. So, don't be afraid of that. But if there's somebody that has a big market share, I'm not going to go up against that. Like, why do that when there's so many other neighborhoods that you could go after?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great points. Yeah. That's interesting what you said. Sometimes the illusion of someone owning a neighborhood, but then also sometimes it really is, they really own the neighborhood. Like, I mean, there's a couple neighborhoods I know of, and there are agents there that have been living there since the 90s, and they know you're not gonna build that much rapport and like someone that's been living there for 30 years, obviously. So yeah, that makes sense. And then last question I kind of had for you was, at what point so you said you've been not producing for the last, I think you said 4 years or so. When did you know it was time, right? I know you said like there was some obviously hesitancy because you thought maybe you wouldn't make as much, but like when did you know it was time? All right, like I need to get out and just focus on duplicating and replicating myself, essentially. Like, how did you know that? Or was it just a leap of faith, or what was going on back then?
I think it was when I found my top agent who's still with me at 11 years. I think that when you have that person in place that you can completely trust and rely on to do things as good as you did or even better, I think that was probably the point where I said, I can do this. And the best part about it is that once I said, I want to do this, he was great when I would be talking to clients or taking a listing. He would say, that's not your job. That's my job. And so he did a really good job of kind of like, almost like pushing me out of that. And so it worked out really well. But I think the who often is the solution.
Gotcha. Yeah. He was almost like, you were almost like the mom when the kids are already 18 off to college. He was like, Mom, just leave me be.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, Sandra, thank you so much for your time and kind of shedding some light on how to scale a real estate team successfully, how to break into new farms, the newsletter. Thanks for sharing all of those things. We are obviously going to link all of your social media and your contact information down in the description below. But if somebody wants to learn more about you or work with you, I also know you've written a book and you also host Zoom trainings. Where would be a good place to start? How can somebody get in touch with you to learn more?
Yeah, great. The easiest thing is to email me at sandra@sandrarathe.com, and that will get you onto my Zoom. I can send you a code to get a discounted book. The book is called Secrets of Top Luxury Agents. It's a compilation of 21 agents from across the country and different brokerages that we put the book together. And you also can give us a call at 954-547-4601. And we love referrals and we love sending them and receiving them.
Awesome. And I'm sure you being in Southeast Florida, you receive a lot with everybody wanting to move down here. So, well, awesome. Thank you so much. And you have a great rest of your day, Sandra.
All right. Thank you. It was fun.
And that wraps up another insightful episode of the 239 Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussions and gained valuable knowledge to enhance your home ownership journey here in Southwest Florida. A big thank you to our incredible guests and, of course, to you, our listeners, for joining us. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to connect, feel free to reach out. You can find us on Instagram at Kevin Tremmel _real estate, on Facebook at Kevin Tremmel Real Estate, or visit our website, kevintremmel.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback is crucial, and we're always eager to hear from you. Until next time, this is Kevin Tremmel, your host, signing off. See you on the next episode.